Today we're going to continue exploring making changes to the standard form of the quadratic function. Today we're going to actually explore what happens if you make changes to the c value. That would be the value without a variable at the end of each standard form of the quadratic equation. Just to remind you, last class we were exploring what happens when you make changes to the coefficient of x squared, to the a value. And those changes either made our parabola get really narrow, or it made it get wider. And if that value was negative, it even turned it upside down, made it face downward. So that was what happened when we worked with the a value. Today we're going to mostly work with the c value, and then in the end we'll start throwing in changes to the a and c so that you can make all predictions. All right, so let's just start right into it. Our parent function, that would be the y equals x squared. That's our parent function. We're going to make all of our comparisons to this. So go ahead and put your calculator into the y1. Go ahead and put the parent function, y equals x squared, and make it bold. We're making all of our comparisons to that. Okay, now number 1, practice number 1, in your y2, I want you to put y equals x squared plus 5. A couple of things to notice. Did we change our a value at all from our parent function to number 1? No, we didn't. So it's not going to be wider, it's not going to be narrower, it's the same exact u. What is happening, if you look at it, is it is now started higher. So our new graph, even though it's hard to look at it with my sketching, is the exact same u as the parent function. We've just shifted that u up 5 units on the graph. And what caused that change was that plus 5. That's what said shifted up 5 units. Okay, so clear number 1 out of your y2. Leave the parent function, and let's look at number 2. On number 2, again, it's not going to be any wider or narrower. So the only change is what's going to happen when we do this negative 3. And the only thing that's happening, put it in and go ahead and press graph, is your graph is now started down here at the negative 3, but it's the same u, the same width as your parent function. Okay, so when your parent function doesn't change, and this is a trick, a trap, I would call it for testing, is when you put this in, initially when you look at number 1, you go, hey, you know what, this one looks narrower. And normally that'll be the first answer. So if you're going really fast, you see that that one's inside the parent function, you say narrower, you move on. You're wrong. You've just missed the question. So make sure you read all the questions, because further down in the questions will be one that says, hey, it shifts up 5. So make sure you read all your questions and don't get caught in the trap that that looks a little bit narrower just because it started up higher. Or conversely, like on number 2, you put these in. If you're going really fast, you're going to, hey, that looks a little bit wider, and you pick that as an answer, and again, you just got the wrong answer. Because our x squareds didn't change, these are the exact same width. The only thing happening on this graph is it's moving down 3 to start. Okay, so now let's look at what happens when we both change the a value and the c value. So again, on number 3, I'm going to make this a little bigger. On number 3, we've already got the parent function into the sketch. Before we even put this into our calculator, let's look at our a value. Just from what we know from the a value, the negative means that our parabola is going to open face down. And the fact that it's a negative 3 is getting farther away from 0 than 1, and so it's going to be narrower. Farther away it gets, the narrower it gets. So we know we have a downward opening graph that's narrower than the parent function. And then we have to deal with this. Our downward opening graph that is narrower than the parent function is going to start on negative 2. So our graph is going to start down here. going to go downward, and it's narrower. So go ahead and put this into your calculator, parent function in y1, the new function in y2, and verify that you were able to correctly predict how that graph was going to change. Okay, so let's look at number 4. Okay, and again, before we even put this in our calculator, let's make a quick prediction on how it's going to change. And if we make this prediction, the first thing we have to look at is our A value. It's positive, so it's going to open upward, but it's a 1/2. So it's closer to 0 or closer to a flat line than our parent function. So it's going to be wider. And then it's also going to start 4 units lower. So our graph, I'm going to make him a little bolder. It's going to start here at -4, and he's going to be a little bit wider than our parent function. And that's an approximate sketch of it. Okay, let's turn the page. 2 is they will use this on the STAR test as a way to write comparisons. So look at what we have with number 5. So number 5 gives us 2 functions. It gives us function f, and it says this guy right here is my function f. And then it says, oh, and I want you to compare it to function g. But it hasn't completely given you function g. What it has said is it said use function f in its entirety and then -7 from it. So let's just rewrite function g. Our g of x, instead of f of x, because that's not going to go in our calculator, we need to actually put this whole f of x equation. So we got -0.5x squared plus 2. Okay, so that takes care of our whole f of x equation, and then we have to continue with what g of x says, so -7. And then when you put these two in your calculator, always bold your original one, the one you're comparing to. So you make that in y1 and bold it, and put the other one, the g of x, in y2, and don't bold it. So how did they change? Well, we can look and see that our x squareds are not going to change at all. Our x squareds are the same. But our f of x starts at +2, and our g of x starts 7 units lower than that. So it's actually going to start at +2, and then we're going to count down 7. So we're going to go +1, 0, and then -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one's actually going to have an equation of y equals -0.5x squared, because none of that changed. But we're really combining our +2 minus 7, and that comes out to -5. Okay, if you have any other questions on this, make sure to come into tutoring and I'll try and help you out.